Hello, I'm Sarah Fry. Welcome to PaTTAnpod. Teachers of students with visual impairments, or TVI, are uniquely qualified educators who support students who are blind or have visual impairments. In alignment with Pennsylvania's dedication to attracting, preparing, and retaining practitioners in education, particularly in special education, today on PaTTAnpod, we are going to learn more about the unique and rewarding career of teachers of students with visual impairments. Today, I'm excited to welcome on a few guests to help us learn about this. We have Amanda Whelan from Bucks County Intermediate Unit, Scott Burfield from Central Intermediate Unit number 10, and Holly Russell from the Western Pennsylvania School for Blind Children. Welcome, guests.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So to begin our conversation today, I'm very curious, what inspired you to become a TVI and get into this role?
Well, for me, I can start if that's okay, but for me, I was a junior in college, and I went to do a practicum student at Western Pennsylvania School for Blind Children. Never thought that I wanted to be a teacher at all. Actually, I was pre-med and pre-dental and all these other things. And I went and worked in the preschool class for about 2 hours, went home and called my mom and said, this is what I'm gonna do. These little people are so amazing that I have to dedicate my life to this kind of work. And that was it for me. Yeah.
Scott?
With myself, I was a dedicated special education teacher, and the IU where I work came to me and asked if I would consider adding vision to my certification. And so that's how I ended up working with students with visual impairments.
Holly?
So I was doing my undergrad at Kutztown and taking an intro to special ed class, and I learned that Kutztown had an undergraduate program for teachers with blind and visually impaired. And I met with the director for about 6 hours in his office, and I signed up for the program the next day because I was just so inspired by everything that he was doing with the program and super excited to start working towards that degree.
So between the three of you, you've had quite a few years of experience and different levels of involvement with the school setting. I'm curious, there might be some contrasts or maybe some similarities. Could you paint a picture of what your role is like, what maybe a day in the life of a TVI is like?
Every day of the week is different. So I'm an itinerant teacher. I teach in 13 different school districts. So I go from school to school, seeing students in the classrooms, and every single day of the week is different, but pretty much every single week throughout the month is the same. So I just follow that schedule Monday through Friday from 7:30 until 3:30.
Like you, I'm also an itinerant, which means I spend a majority of my time on the road, driving from rural school district to rural school district. I'm only supporting 3 districts this year, but the students that I'm supporting are very high need. And when I say high need, I'm talking Braille instruction. So I'm typically in those districts either between 3 and 5 days a week for lengthy amounts of time to provide that level of instruction. You get to make a lot of great friends along your way from District A to District B to District C, and they welcome you in. They welcome because they may not know exactly how to proceed with a specific student or a specific student's needs. So there's always a lot of conversation, there's always a lot of collaboration, and I've made some awesome friends through the years.
Yeah, my schedule is like theirs. I'm itinerant Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And the thing that's neat about that is traveling from school to school, but also the kids are different each,
Absolutely.
from grades K through 12. So you know, 1 minute you could be in a kindergarten class, and the next minute you're teaching someone, some skills they need to get into college. So there's a lot of diversity in what we do. But also for me, Thursdays and Fridays, I work in an evaluation clinic at Western Pennsylvania School for Blind Children and do the evaluations for children and their families. So get to make recommendations for how they can be better supported in their schools or in their early intervention, wherever they happen to be.
So it sounds like you've got some routines and some scheduling, but you also get a wide variety of settings, both within different schools, and get to interact with lots of students of different needs and different communities.
I think with that routine, there's also a lot of flexibility. Just in building a schedule and working with districts to build a schedule that allows students to continue to be in a least restrictive environment.
And I feel like we're not bored very much. We don't sit still very much. It's not a boring job, for sure. We're always moving.
So Scott, you hit on kind of meeting interesting people and building some connections. I'm wondering if you have any little moments or stories that have just stuck with you about the way that you've impacted a student's educational career, or something that happened within the school that you know you've made a difference in your job.
I think every student impacts me in one way or another. There are two that really stand out in my mind. One is a high school senior that I'm working with who will be my first student who is college bound. So it's been really great to see him grow for the past 8 years into a student now who feels confident enough to go to college, and go to college away from home and start to build that life for himself. And then on the other end of that spectrum, we have a very young student who is at the beginning stages. I say beginning stages of Braille reading, but he came into kindergarten last year maybe knowing 3 letters of his first name. And this year he is reading up to 4 decodable books per week. He is using assistive technology at a level probably higher than I am, and can remind me of specific keystrokes. So I choose those 2 students because there's so many similarities between my young student and my older student when he was at that younger age. So it's almost like coming full circle with some of these kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really neat. A lot of, even in education, careers don't offer you that kind of level of relationship building and being a part of someone's journey for so long. That's so special.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the better parts.
I
Where you get
agree.
to follow the student year after year, and you can see their progress and become part of the family, and always know what's going on, their traditions that they have every year as a family, and it's really cool to be part of that.
Yeah. I think also, too, to help the family to know all the things that their child can do. They're so scared at first when their child is first diagnosed, and we can show them how well their child can do. And it just feels really great to be able to help the child, but also the whole family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, in some ways, right? We think of teachers of visual impairments focusing on the student, but like you mentioned, a lot of that has to do with communication and support around the other individuals working with that student, including their family. So that's a special relationship and an empowering situation you can put families in with your skill set, right?
Yep.
So, I'm sold on this. This is an amazing journey that the 3 of you have made in different directions, but with just astounding results impacting schools and families and the communities. If someone is watching or listening to us today and it's sparked an interest in them, what kind of tips or advice would you give someone who might be interested in pursuing a career as a TVI?
Be personable, because you do meet so many people throughout your travels, especially if you're an itinerant, and trying to remember everyone's name too that you meet that's on a team is super important too, especially if you have to send a follow-up email. So any kind of tips and tricks that you can think of to remember someone's name, even if it's a little song or a saying, and try to know a little bit more about their life to make that connection and building those relationships, because you never know when you might see them 5 years down the road with another student, or you might need them for another situation. It's always good to make those connections and keep them.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I think that going into this field, there's always a lot of unknowns, and personally, when the IU that I work for came to me, I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm at a certain stage in my career, and am I too old to make that change? And will I be able to do it? And I think that it's all a mindset. And I've always been one throughout my career that every student can learn, and it's up to us to find a way to make sure that that happens. And I think once you pull the families into that, it's just an absolute win-win situation. And in some ways, we all become part of those families. And it's not just, I see your child in a school setting, and my parents who text me, asking about my own children or whatever. I mean, it's a very shared experience, and be willing to share that experience and draw everybody in, just so that our kids are ready to make that move when that time comes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And you'll see once your kids go to college, the ones that you're teaching, you'll still get texts from them.
Absolutely.
I still get texts from the college kiddos, and it's so fun to follow up with them. But I think anybody that's interested in our field should just come and hang out with us and see what we do. Spend the day with us, and I guarantee they will love our job. They will love what we do. Once they meet the kids and kind of follow us for a day, they'll be really excited about it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for that open invitation. I think that's a great way to end on that. It's been such a pleasure to learn more about the work that you all do. Thank you so much for being here. And following up on what she just said, if you're interested in learning more about TVI and Pennsylvania's Attract, Prepare, Retain initiative, you can check those out in the APR repository. The link is available in our show notes. I'd also like to thank John Ragsdale today for producing this episode. And for our audience, thank you for joining us in this conversation. I hope you'll come back to PaTTAnpod very soon.